Spoilers for anything Dragon Ball Z Kakarot related. Bandai Namco did a terrible job with their DLC business model. They made it so that you get 3 DLCs for a season pass, which would be fine if they were decent-sized DLCs, except one of the 2 DLCs is a full-sized one, and then 2 of the DLCs were half of a DLC. So you actually get 2 DLCs for the first season pass. And then they made a second DLC pass, which is going to have at least the Budokai Tenkaichi 23rd Tournament, which is the first arc of Dragon Ball, and the Bardock Warrior of Fate one. And it seems like all of them are going to be Future Trunks sized. But they don't really integrate into the base game at all. They're just kind of another menu in the game. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Sometimes that works and it's like, okay, we get like a separate mode of play. What I am saying is it needed to be integrated better because the way that they did it, the first 2 DLCs integrate into the game by giving you new transformations. And the second DLC, so there's A New Power Awakens Parts 1 and 2, which I will just refer to as A New Power Awakens, or NPA, which is you get the 2 transformations of Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. Whew, that's a mouthful. You get 2 new areas in the Beerus planet and a new location on the Earth to fight Golden Frieza. And then you get like a new mode of play, which is the Horde modes, which aren't very good. It's so unfortunate because it could have been so much better and they just dropped the ball on the Horde mode because it's time consuming and you just fight a bunch of guys. And it's not like the fun kind of fighting where you're strategically fighting people. It's just a bunch of weak peons who are a little bit stronger than they should be, just destroying you potentially, or you just fighting a bunch of people and just having no fun while mind-numbingly grinding. And it's a grindy experience instead of fun. So, like, with that, I was thinking about what I wanted from the DLC with Kakarot and how they could have done it better. And I was looking at other companies, and one of the biggest companies I thought of was Paradox Interactive, which they have their own things that aren't so good about them. But one thing that I respect about them is with their DLC, they use that to fund further upgrading their games. Look at all of their grand strategies in Hoi 4, Europa Universalis 4, lots of 4s, Victoria 3, Imperator Rome, and all of those, they have lots of DLCs, but each DLC funds a little bit of upgrading to the main game. And I think Bandai Namco could absolutely take a lesson from that. So I wanted to go through each of the DLCs, as well as some of the Universal stuff that I'd like to see when they're dropping their DLCs, and kind of talk about what I would have done with them and kind of explain all of that. Some of this might be a bit rambly, and I apologize for that. I have a list here, and I'm just going to read through it and explain what I wanted. All right. So one thing that Paradox does very well is they have this thing where you'll have a new DLC and then things that are tangentially related to that, the Paradox team will then upgrade in the game. As an example, for Hearts of Iron 4, there was a No Step Back, I believe was the DLC, and it adds railroads to the game in a way that, like, you build up your infrastructure and it makes it so that the infrastructure is way more fun to play with rather than what it was before, which was just a slog if you're a smaller country. And they did a great job with that, and I think that they have my props for that. And with each of these DLCs, I think they could have done something like that. And I think integrating parts of the DLCs into the main game so you get a reward for playing the DLCs in the base game makes a lot of sense. So first, what I'm going to talk about is the Universal stuff. So like with each of the DLCs, these are things that I would have added. like 1 or 2 of these things each time, but for the base game. One of which is whenever you purchase a DLC, whatever D medals you gain in that DLC also take up your base game D medals, so that any new characters that are added, such as future Trunks' new moves or things like that, they are added to the base game and allow you to have this nice cushion, basically, for all of the stuff. With that as well, I would add a sub-story every time there's a DLC for free, so you get something for the base game. And some ideas I have for the sub-stories are a sub-story could be added to the base game, which has it so that you have Raditz, Goku, and Gohan after he is resurrected and fought once, and it's all about Raditz trying to find a new place in the world, so you end up actually having more interaction with Raditz, since Raditz is once again one of the forgotten characters from the Saiyan arc, because then you have Nappa, and you have Vegeta, who are some of the coolest characters in that area of the story, because, like, they just make the story so much better. And Raditz was more of just there to die. He was there to just do a bunch of exposition and then die, which is just so unfortunate because he's Goku's brother. You'd think there would be more story there. So that'd be the first sub-story that I would add to the game, and that would be for the first part of New Power Awakens. Second sub-story would be a sub-story that slightly boosts Chaozu's stats, making him slightly better overall, because if you've played this game, boy is Chaozu just crappy as hell. He is not good to fight with. And sure, you can say that's a challenge and everything to fight with him as one of your supports, but like, that's not the point of this game. The point of this game seems to be to level up to the point where you're overpowered and to enjoy being able to defeat all of your enemies in a real fun way. So that'd be the New Power Awakens Part 2 sub-story that's unlocked. And then the sub-story for the Trunks Warrior of Hope story that would be unlocked in the base game without buying the DLC would be a sub-story where after all the boxes are resurrected, so like all the villains, so Frieza, Raditz, Nappa, Dodoria, Zarbon, and all of them are resurrected with the Dragon Balls, you fight them again because they teamed up with different combinations, like Cybermen with Cell Juniors being herded around by Qui. And you could have some fun combinations there where you have like villains who you don't usually see interact. Like you could have Cell interacting with Nappa and just being so done with Nappa. And you could have Frieza talking to Boo, like Kid Boo, and trying to like get Kid Boo to do something, but Kid Boo being really obstinate. I think that could be a really fun story that they tell in that, and it could be kind of an analog to the tournament sub-story. So there's a tournament sub-story where you build up a tournament and you fight against Vegeta and such, and it's a real fun sub-story where you get to see the tournament announcer from Dragon Ball, and it's just nostalgic in general. So that'd be for the Trunks. Then for the Bardock one, a sub-story would be added for Krillin and the Goku family, so both of their families, going on a family outing that is then crashed by Vegeta and Trunks, who want to fight Goku and Goten again in a rematch, where you get interactions between Marin, Goten, and Trunks, because we haven't really seen that, and that would be really adorable, having it so that Goten, Trunks, and Marin get to just hang out for a little bit, while like Vegeta and Goku's like rivalry comes into play, and Goku and Vegeta are just like having that rivalry while the kids are just enjoying themselves. I think that'd be really fun. And then for the Bodokai, I would love to have a sub-story where Piccolo wants to know more about the Namekians and their culture, and he travels to Namek to learn more about the differences between the Warrior Clan and the Dragon Clan Namekians. I think that could be a really fun story. There could be some really cool lore bits that they add, like pour over some of the Daijensus and different things that they have with different information. I think that could be just really just a blast. Those are the universal things that I think you could add to the base game, and like without purchasing the DLCs, you gain those sub stories. Now I'm going to talk about the different DLCs and what I would have like looked at them and added, as well as what I would have wanted and what they were missing. With the new Power Awakens, it has the two transformations of Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, and they're added to the base game already. With each of the DLCs, I think that you should have something that is added to the base game, be that the new areas, the new transformations, or whatever game mode is added from that DLC into the base game, so you have like a place to do those other than the DLC. So it unlocks something in the base game when you purchase the DLC. And with those transformations, they already did that, so that's a check there. There's two new areas in the Beerus planet and a new location on the Earth to fight Golden Frieza. And those areas are pretty cool, but like, once again, the first part of the A New Power Awakens, you go to Beerus's planet and you can go there at any time. It's just kind of like you have Whis, the Oracle Fish, and Beerus on the planet, and no one else interacts with them. And that's just kind of unfortunate, because like you could have had some fun stuff where like the Supreme Kai comes over there, Elder Kai, or some sort of sub-story where it's not just Vegeta and Goku fighting full power, but something that while you're training, there's like a wrinkle where Supreme Kai, Elder Kai, or Kabito come over there and are like, hey, nice to meet you, or whatever. Which I understand why they didn't do that, because A New Power Awakens, they readjust the story, so Whis just kind of pulled them out of the timeline to become Super Saiyan God, so that Beerus has someone to fight. And that makes some sense, but also, like, since it's already out of time, why not have them just, like, learn that thing, since they gain the transformations throughout the game, you know? And then there's the Golden Frieza area is really cool. It's like a port area, and it would be fun to be able to just explore that area outside of Golden Frieza, like add it to the base game so you can explore that area. Or maybe after you finish the DLC, both of those areas are unlocked for the base game, so you don't have to go to the menu to then do those DLCs. They are now just there for you to do. I think that would be really nice. What's missing from this DLC is the ability to travel to Earth freely, even after the game is beaten, which is what I just said. Sorry, I'm going off of notes here. What it's also kind of missing is, like, you get the new costumes for Vegeta and Goku, which is the ones with Whis' symbol, and you don't get to wear those outside of the DLCs, which is kind of dumb. And then for the part 2, you have it so Gohan gets his tracksuit. And why not just have it so that when you're done with the DLC, you gain the ability to customize your costumes? So, like, you can wear your Yardrat uniform. You can wear, for Goku, you can wear the Whis version of the armor for Vegeta. You can wear the tracksuit for Gohan. Like, that would make the DLC infinitely better, and that would be something that they could add to the base game with either after purchasing the DLC or just before, so that way people can wear whatever costumes they want to wear during whatever era where it's appropriate. Like, Kid Gohan wouldn't be able to wear the tracksuit unless you want to model all of those things, and then that would be something that you would buy with the DLC, because that's more work for the development team. What I would want from the DLC is the unique horde battles. So, like, you fight Cybermen horde in the menu, and then like you have boss stages with the horde battle where you go against Raditz, and then you fight more Cybermen, which are probably like the Jinko men or the Tenemen after that, and then you fight against Nappa, and then you fight against the strongest version of the Cybermen, and then you fight against Vegeta. And like then you could have like the Frieza Force, and you fight against like the low level Frieza force, and then you have the bosses of Kui, Dodoria, and Zarbon with both of his forms. And you could do that kind of thing for the base game integration and have it so it's lower level things that are added before the DLC is started for part 2, but then that like makes it so that you can have, I think, a lot more fun in general for like the base game, because it adds something to it. And even though I don't like the horde mode, I think that would make it way more fun having it so that it's like a boss rush. You fight a bunch of enemies to get to the boss, you fight a bunch of enemies to get to the next boss, you fight a bunch of enemies to get to the final boss kind of thing. And I think that would be just a blast in general, because then it's not just a slog, it's you strategically fighting those like many enemies to get to the boss battles and such, and that would be just, I think, really fun. That's all I have for the A New Power Awakens. Honestly, that one was my least favorite DLC. I think it being split in parts 1 and 2 was lame. I think having it so that one part you can finish before the game and one part you can finish after the game is completed for the base game kind of hurts the experience, because like if you had it so that you had those 2 new areas and you could go to those 2 new areas before the game starts, and you can just like train up and do all of the things to just have fun, and then like you could unlock all of the transformations, so you could get it so that you get Piccolo's fusion transformation early, you can get Gohan's Super Saiyan and the potential unlocked transformation early. I think that would make the DLC 20 times more enjoyable in general, because it wouldn't just be focused on Vegeta and Goku, which once again is just kind of dumb. Like if you're going to have a bunch of playable characters, don't make 1 or 2 of them way more overpowered than everyone else. Gohan's supposed to be more powerful than Goku until the Cell Saga, and the whole reason he's not after that point is because he doesn't train. So why not give us a version of Gohan who's way more powerful? Anyways, so Trunks Warrior of Hope. It is the perfect DLC. I loved future Trunks and future Gohan. I think it's the gold standard of what Kakarot should be aiming for when it comes to a DLC. And part of that is just the fact that they did a great job. Part of that is the fact that they did a little extra. And I'll go through that right now. So you have it so that you've got new moves added to Trunks after finishing the DLC story, which is what I was talking about with adding something to the base game. Sure, you only gain it after you've beaten the Warrior of Hope DLC as well as completing the main game. That's okay. I would prefer that you get it when you are in the Cell Saga, Android Saga area, but it's fine that it's not. Like, it just means that you get a more powerful Trunks, and that's great in general. It's kind of like the odd man out because it allows you to then get another transformation for Trunks to make him more powerful, and I think that's great. And then it makes it so that there's a new kind of game mode, which is drones that attract the androids to fight and when it's appropriately leveled, they're challenging to escape from the androids after the fact. And it was just a blast having to strategically fly around the drones and everything to get to where you needed to be. And you don't need to do that, but like it makes it way more fun to do. And it has a little extra at the end of the episode of Trunks where you go through and you kill the androids in Cell, which is in the TV show but not the made-for-TV movie, as well as you get to go against Boo with the Supreme Kai, which is just great. It's like that little bit of extra love and a good touch that just makes that DLC so much better in general. If I was to have anything for that one, I would want the ability to play as both Supreme Kai and Future Gohan in the DLC after beating the DLC, because you can't play as either after it's done. And that's kind of my gripe with all of the DLCs, because you just kind of end up being your alone character at the end, and that's lame once again. And then potentially you could add a a sub-story to the base game after beating the DLC where Trunks requests Gohan's help in retrieving the Dragon Balls to bring back future versions of his comrades, leading to the ability to play as future Gohan and potentially future Supreme Kai in the base game's intermissions. And with that, you could have it so that Gohan is being convinced by Trunks by having him explain he wants future Gohan to see what he could do, and also for Gohan to see who Trunks admired so much and why he has such an affinity for Gohan. I think that would just be amazing and such a fun experience overall. And that also adds something to the base game, because you're not going to be able to add the game mode to the base game. Might as well add the characters to the base game. And with that just, it makes it so that the base game is better. And I think every DLC should make the base game better. That just makes sense in general. Then we've got Bardock Alone Against Fate, which is kind of middle of the road for DLCs. It's good, but it's not great, and it could have been great. And that's just kind of disappointing in general, because Bardock's really cool, and so is Fasha and Tora, who you get to play as in this, as support characters, unfortunately, but you still get to play as them. So the DLC has the episode of Bardock's Story, which is the movie made for TV that released around the time of the Frieza saga to give extra context to what Frieza has done, as well as it shows a tragedy of the Saiyan race and the destruction of their home planet. And it follows Goku's father, Bardock, as he goes through and genocides a couple of planets, and then his own planet gets genocided as he learns that Frieza is planning to do that and tries to resist. So what the DLC has is that story, as well as it has the support characters of Fasha and Tora, as well as Bardock being able to be played. You also get a little extra bit, which is you get to play as Kid Vegeta, which, honestly, if I was to have an extra bit, I would not have Kid Vegeta. I would probably have it so that I could have Gin in the game, or I could have, someone who cooks, because there's no person who can cook full course meals to give you stat boosts for Bardock, Tora, and Fasha, and that is dumb. I hate it. There's also a new game mode where you can go through and do all of the story missions again, but harder, and that's really cool, but they don't let you choose to be Kid Vegeta or Bardock or, like, your two supports, in any of those battles, so it's just kind of like, okay, I can't create my own configuration, so what's the point? There's a new game mode in there, though, which is kind of neat, which is basically you have it so that you are destroying a planet, so you have the ability to fight horde battles to lower the level of the main city to then fight the main city. And if you don't do that, it is a slog to fight that main city. Holy crap. That main city will have like 800 to 1,000 people who you have to fight, and it takes you like 20 minutes if you're appropriately leveled, and it's horrible, and I would not recommend it for anyone. So what's the game missing? The game is missing Gin, the wife of Bardock, even being referenced, which is understandable for the plot that they're telling, but also just unfortunate. And with that, there's no chef to make full course meals to increase stats, which they had an alternative that was viable in the game, and then they didn't go for it. Sure, if you didn't want to keep Gin in the game, what you could have done is used Chef Malone, who is used for a sub-story in this DLC. You could have just had it so you unlock the ability to do full course meals after you help him, and he's like, hey, I'll cook for you after this. But for some reason they decided not to have the full course meals or anything in this DLC, which is understandable but unfortunate, because then you can't make your characters overpowered, and that's kind of sad. You have no section where you can play as Fasha/Tora, trying in vain to hold out against Dodoria's men. And I say this is missing because that would be very similar to future Gohan in the Trunks Warrior of Hope, where Gohan goes and fights the androids to no avail and loses. And they have this awesome sequence where future Gohan uses his Masenko and destroys his energy gauge, and it's actually broken, like it shatters in the cutscene, and then after that you fight them with no energy and you cannot win, and it's incredible. I know I'm just kind of saying that I love the Trunks DLC, but it is the gold standard for a reason when it comes to the Kakarot DLCs. So, like, if they would have had that sequence and had it so that you got to play as Fasha or Tora, and then potentially have the other two of Bardock's crew be able to be supports for that one section, and just you end up losing because Dodoria's men are too powerful, or maybe you're able to actually get a leg up on them and then Dodoria shows up and wrecks you, then I think that would have been so much more fun, and it would have fleshed out the DLC. Because the DLC has the 3-episode structure of all of, the Trunks DLC as well, but it's not really a 3-episode structure. You have it so that Bardock annihilates a planet, then goes to planet Vegeta, sleeps in, and then goes to Kanasa and annihilates the planet, and then gets knocked out, and then goes off to go find his friends who are dead, and then he goes back to Vegeta to try and warn people and fights Frieza, which you can build a 3-act structure there. You have it so that there is the first structure of like Bardock and crew being successful in their missions, being able to annihilate planets. So you have the first planet that they're on, which is the spiky pugilist people, and you could have that be an act, and then have it so it's more fleshed out so that it feels like you are actually Bardock and you are actually using your crew to annihilate that planet. That would be great. It just is one battle and then it goes off into the Kanasa, and then you have it so that you go to Kanasa and it's like there's no real, how to say it, it's lacking, and it's lacking in a way that's hard to describe. It's like, oh, that's it, rather than, this is cool, I'm getting to be Bardock, I'm experienced being Bardock, which is how it felt for the Trunks one. So that's kind of what's missing, and what I would want for this DLC, there's a lot of things. So you have, when you're done with the DLC, I think that there should be a sub-story that's unlocked with Vegeta remembering a warrior on planet Vegeta who had a strong squad in which he could train with to catch up to Goku. Having Vegeta wish back Bardock's full squad to fight. Upon completion, that would allow you to play as Fasha, Tora, and Bardock in the intermissions. Very similar to what we were saying with the Future Trunks one, where you would gain Gohan and Supreme Kai as supports in the intermissions. You would gain the same ability for the Bardock crew. And I think that's a good reward. And then the extra that we would have for this one, very similar to Trunks, you would have it so that instead of Kid Vegeta, if we want to do Kid Vegeta, you would just have it so that you gain the ability to have his moves for Vegeta, so that it's a little boost if you do the DLC first for Vegeta at first, so he gains like the Prominence Rush and or Promenade Rush or whatever it's called, and the Gamma Burst, which is an explosive wave technique, which is nice for a character in general. So what I would do for the extra though is add some of the Dragon Ball Minus stuff. Have it so that Bardock ends up interacting with Gin a little bit, understanding from his psychic visions before he goes off to go and find his people that something is amiss, and trying to get Kakarot off-world with Gin. Because then you have a little bit of Gin, and you have it so that you've got a little bit of the Dragon Ball Minus stuff. And with that, the whole reason he could be bringing off to make it so that he's more accurate to his version in Bardock is just have it so he's like, yeah, this is an opportunity, so if I fail, there's still an opportunity for revenge against Frieza, or something to that effect, because he's noticing something's off, but he's not quite there yet. You could also have it so that there is something where you get at least hints of him going back in time and doing the second Bardock episode, where he protects Planet Vegeta before it's Planet Vegeta and fights Lord Chilled and becomes Super Saiyan. I don't think I would want that. I think that that can be its own separate DLC if we really want to make it so that we have Bardock again. Similar to like how we could have the Goku Black arc as a separate DLC for Trunks. But you could do that. I don't necessarily want it. Once again, Kid Vegeta unlocking in the base game for the moves after the DLC is finished. Very similar, you can just be like, Vegeta is changed now, so you can use those moves. And then a few extra training room fights to be unlocked against Bardock and crew, Dodoria's goons, and the first form of Frieza after the DLC is finished. So, like, you could have it so that those fights are somewhere scaled into where they would be if you were to have them in the sagas. So I'd say the Bardock crew could be right after Vegeta and his crew, and then the Dodoria squad could be right before Dodoria or right after Dodoria, if you have Dodoria as like part of that with Dodoria and Zarbon, and then first form Frieza before you have final form Frieza and the two goobs he has otherwise. And you could have first form Frieza with Dodoria and Zarbon, which would be fun. I think that would be great. So that's kind of the extras that I would want for Bardock. And I don't mean to complain and rag on Bardock. I think it's a fine DLC. It's just fine though. And it could have been so much better. It could have been the gold standard of DLCs for Kakarot. Now Budokai Tenkaichi 23rd Tournament could be the gold standard next. And I'm so excited for this DLC. I think it's going to be really fun. It should release sometime in June or July, which might not be, but hey, if it does, that's great. If it doesn't, what can you do? And I think the only thing it genuinely needs is to add a tournament mode to the base game, where you can fight anyone who is like all the fightable characters, all the resurrected people are allowed to participate in the tournament. So you can have RNG where, like, after you've resurrected the Ginyu Force can show up in that tournament, and you can have 8-man brackets, you can have 16-man brackets, and you can have 32-man brackets. So you get to fight 4 people. I don't remember the exact way those brackets work. I think it's 4, 8, and 16 fights respectively in your tournament, and with each of those you would gain better and better prizes, because I think there are 32 people you could potentially fight in the sagas, because you've got Boo, you've got Super Boo, you've got Kid Boo, you have Cell Imperfect as well as Perfect Cell, you have Frieza first through 4th form if you have the DLC of Bardock, you've got Dodoria, Zarbon Monster form, you have Goldo and the Ginyu Force, which is another 5 there, you have Kui, you have Vegeta, Nappa, Raditz, Cybermen in general, you have Cell Juniors, the androids, which, oh boy, is 16 through 20 right there. So that's enough to do 32 fighters, including the fighters that you have like Yamcha, Chaozu, and all of them. But like just a tournament mode added into the game after you complete the DLC would be incredible, and that's what it needs. What I would want from the DLC would be a giant form of Piccolo unlocked after completing the DLC, and then new moves and abilities unlocked for Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha for base game to give them more oomph. Because honestly, after a certain point in time, I just stopped using the Earthlings and Chaozu, because they're kind of garbage. Krillin, I'd say, is the one that suffers the least from that. But, like, why would I start using them after the Buu saga when none of them are able to use really, like, super moves that are like, oh man, this is great. Like, when I use Piccolo, I can use the super explosive wave or ultimate explosive wave. For Gohan, I can use the ultimate Masenko, and he has the ultimate potential unlocked. You have it so that you've got all the Super Saiyan forms for all of the people. Why is there no max power transformation for each of those characters? That would be a great thing to add in the Budokai DLC, so that each of your base characters at least have a Super Saiyan / Kaioken variant. With Piccolo, you could make it so the giant form is something where it has a lot more damage, but it's slower. That'd be fine with me. You could also have it so that Piccolo gains more transformations and just like adjust this in the game, where Piccolo has potential unlocked Fusion 1, potential unlocked Fusion 2, and then Ultimate Namekian Warrior. And then if we ever do a DLC for the superhero, which I really want, you could have Piccolo Orange. And then that would give him the same amount of transformations as Super Saiyan 3 or Super Saiyan God's, the first form, not the second form, because, Goku and Vegeta have to be so much better than everyone else. But, it would at least give him that edge where Piccolo doesn't become non-competitive. Because right now, my squad ends up always being Goku, Gohan, and Vegeta if I'm doing serious fights. And, that's not fun. Give me that chance to be all of my fun characters and enjoy that. In general, because that's the most fun part about any Dragon Ball game, is playing the unique characters. If I could play as Chaozu throughout the game, I would be playing as Chaozu, because I would just telekinesis everyone and have a great time, because that's one of the most fun things with some of the older Budokai Tenkaichi games, is playing as Chaozu and destroying people. And I don't know, it's just really fun.
So now we've talked about every DLC that we know of, and all the DLCs wants that I have. Let's talk about our wish list for future DLCs. I want Dragon Ball Superhero to be a DLC, where we gain the transformations of Gohan Beast Form and Piccolo Orange so they can be competitive with Goku and Vegeta. I think that would be great. I think that it would add to the game. And if you made it so that, if they took the little bit extra and made it so that Kid Gohan, Teen Gohan, and all of them could be Beast Gohan, that would be incredible and so funny. So that's one that I want. I also want Black Goku arc, or the Zamasu arc, because I want Trunks to have another transformation as well. I think he being able to shine in that DLC and getting to the point where he can do the Super Saiyan Rage transformation, that would also be really, really cool, and it would give him that competitive edge where he can be as strong as Super Saiyan 3 at least. So then, if we're going to have it so that we have 3 seasons, I would have the 2 more DLCs with that be one Dragon Ball DLC with the King Piccolo arc. You could have it so that you either start that one right at the death of Krillin, or you could have it start with the tournament, the 22nd Budokai Tenkaichi, and that could be really fun, because then you get the 2 arcs for the price of 1, and you would be able to have the 3-episode arc kind of thing with the tournament, the death of Krillin, to the fight with Tambourine, and Yajirobe's fight with Tambourine. And then you could have the fights with Drum and Tien, and then Goku versus King Piccolo. And that would be a pretty solid DLC overall. And then I would want the third one of the season 3. I would want the Garlic Jr. movie and the arc in the show. The arc takes place after the Frieza saga and before Goku comes back to Earth and Trunks shows up. With that one, I think that you could add a really fun game mode where you're trying not to be infected by the Blackwater Mist. And that could be really fun, where you're just actually trying to avoid people in one of the cities or something. I think that would just be a blast. And it has that potential of having fun new game modes and such. As well as then you have a chance to upgrade Gohan, as well as upgrade Piccolo a little bit during that arc. And then the earlier fight, you would have Gohan, Piccolo, and Goku fighting against Garlic Jr., and you could totally have it so that Gohan gains the Rage Boost ability. So he actually has a transformation before Super Saiyan. So he'd have Rage Boost, he'd have Super Saiyan 2, and then potential Unleashed. And then, if we have the superhero, he would have the beast form, which would then make him so that he has... I think he would be up to Super Saiyan God at that point, because he would have the Rage Boost, Super Saiyan 1, Super Saiyan 2, potential unlocked, which is his Super Saiyan 3. Yeah, so he'd be at a Super Saiyan God level, which then makes him competitive with Goku and Vegeta. And I think that would just be really nice. It would make it so that the base game is slightly stronger in general with all of those DLCs, because it makes your characters, each character, stronger rather than just having it focus on Vegeta and Goku over and over and over. And with that, you could have it so that you raise the level cap in certain ways. I don't think you need to do that with each DLC, but like, you could have some fun stuff with each of those. Like with the Piccolo arc, you could have it so that Goku can't fly. So you have to find your way around the world without flying. And that could be really fun if you made it so that he gets to go to unique areas and then cannot fly and has to like problem solve his way out of it through a mixture of going through Kachin paths as well as jumping and breaking boulders to get to the next area. I think that could be really fun as well. You could create a really fun play area. With the Future Trunks one, your 3-episode arc, you could have it so that it is Trunks going back in time, fighting with Goku and Vegeta, and then the first episode would end with Goku Black coming back in time to pursue Trunks. Then you would have the second episode be the 3 of them going in the time machine to go to the future to fight Goku Black and Zamasu, and then the last part of the arc would be them fighting Zamasu and Goku Black Rose as their fused form and like defeating them eventually with the spirit super sword thing that Trunks uses. With Garlic Jr., Garlic Jr. is just fun in general. I've always loved him as a villain because he is dumb. He's the perfect mix of old Dragon Ball humor and new Dragon Ball, in my opinion. And he also has his transformation. He has it so that he is strong enough to where he can be a threat. And also, because of where it lands, you can have it so that Gohan and Piccolo can pick up the arc and like grow in power and just get a little bit stronger, like get a few more levels during the Garlic Jr. DLC. So those are my wants for the DLCs in general. And what I would have done as Bandai Namco. And I would go further for different seasons. I think you could go pretty much ad infinitum. You could do a lot of different DLCs with all of the movies. There's a lot of movies. And you could do the alt timeline movies. You could do the ones that are future Trunks. You could do the ones that are Broly. You could do the new Broly Super one. You could do any of those movies and it would be really fun, and I think people would have a blast. But I think those 3, adding them for a season 3 would make sense, and it would keep with the game without bloating it necessarily, or unnecessarily, I should say. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. If you have any thoughts about this, if you have your own ideas for how you would improve the DLCs and how they integrate into the base game of Kakarot, please leave comments down below, and we might be able to have a conversation. I would love that so much. Thank you for listening today, and have a wonderful night.